All right, problem 799. Find the missing information in each set of equivalent ratios below using any method. Be sure that you record your process so that others can see what you did. Okay, part A. I'm just going to recopy down here so I have enough room to write. We have 2/15 is equal to x over 5. Now what I'm going to do to solve this is use the giant 1. I think different methods can be more or less effective in different situations, and in this case I'm going to use the giant 1. So it equals x over 5. So what can I multiply 15 by to get 5? Now be careful. It's not what we're multiplying 5 by to get 15. It's what can we multiply 15 by to get 5. There's a difference. So if you're not sure, you can use the inverse and do 5 divided by 15. And if you do that, you'll get 1/3. I just know in my head that 5 is 1/3 of 15. So I know that 15 times 1/3 gives me 5. So to have a giant 1, that means I need to be multiplying by 1/3 on the top as well. And when I do that, that 2 times 1/3, what I should get is 2/3 for my x. So 2/3 for my x. Now all we need to do is solve for the variables. So for this one we can say x equals 2/3. You do want to make sure that you have all of this work shown as well. All right, let's have a look at B next. B, this one's going to be a little bit interesting. This is going to be different than some of the ones we've done before. So this one's interesting in that the x is on the left side. So we have x over 100 equals 7 over 8. All right, I'm also going to solve this one using a giant 1. So let me go ahead and draw in my giant 1 here. And that equals 7/8. Now in this case, what I need to figure out first when I look at the bottom is what can I multiply 100 by to get 8? So we're going from 100 to 8, so that's a smaller number, which means I'm not going to be multiplying by a whole number, because even if I multiplied 100 by, say, 1, I'd get 100. So it's going to be a small number that we're multiplying by. And if you're not sure how to do that, you can do 8 divided by 100. That's the inverse. And that would give us 0.08 or 8/100. And you'll see, even if you put it into a calculator, that 100 times 0.08 is going to give us 8. Now, in order to have a giant 1, we need to have the same number on top and on bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and write in that 8/100 on the top of my 1. Now, this is where things can get a little bit tricky with this problem. So I have x times 8 gives me 7. So we don't want to do 7 times 8/100 to get x. We need to work backwards. So rather than doing x times 0.08, what we have to do in this case is the inverse, which is 7 divided by 0.08. And when you do that, you're going to find that x equals 87.5. So that is all we need to put here. You do need to make sure that you show your work, though, and how you got it. Okay, moving on to C. we have 0.2 or 2/10. Make that 2 a little bit nicer here. So 2/10 over 2 equals 1 over x. Going to use a giant 1 again. So that's equal to 1 over x. So I want to know, what can I multiply 0.2 by to get 1? Well, I know that that is 5. So 0.2, if I have 5 of those, that's going to give me 1 whole. So I also need to put 5 on the bottom for my giant 1. And then I would have 2 times 5, which is going to give me 10 for x. So I just need to put x equals 10. All right, and finally, we have our last one. Now this one is going to be similar to part B, in that our variable is on the left side. Now if you want to move it so that the variable is on the right side, you can, and I'll show you what I mean. So what you could do is you could say 4/7 equals y over 11.2. That would be an okay thing to do. And I'll show you that it does work if you want to do it that way. I'm still going to use a giant 1 here though. And then I would have y over 11.2. So I need to figure out, what can I multiply 7 by to get to 11.2? Well, those aren't really nice numbers to work with off the top of my head. So what I'm going to do is the inverse, which is 11.2 divided by 7. That's going to give me 1.6. And on top here, I'm also going to have 1.6 to have my giant 1. So when I multiply 4 by 1.6, I'm going to get 6.4 for my y. So 6.4. So I'll say y equals 6.4. Now I do want you to know how to do this if the variable is on the left side as well. So I'm going to go through that way also. So when we have it on this side, y over 11.2, we're multiplying by a giant 1 to get to 4/7. What I need to do is I need to figure out what can I multiply 11.2 by to get to 7. Again, these aren't fantastic numbers to work with in our head, so what I'm going to do then is do the inverse, which would be 7 divided by 11.2, which is going to give me 0.625. Now, to have a giant 1, I have to have the same thing on top here. So if I have 4, or I'm sorry, this was a 4 on top here. All right, so now I have to do 4 divided by 0.625 to get my y, because that's the inverse of multiplying, and that's what I need to do to solve for y. So 4 divided by 0.625, that is still going to give me 6.4. So either way, it's going to be different. Your giant 1s, whatever you put in there, is going to be different based on which side your variable is on, but you still end up with y equals 6.4 either way. So if it helps you to move it to one side, do that. You are allowed to do that. All right, and this is all for problem 799.